I never imagined I'd be telling this story. Not like this. Not to strangers. Not while holding back tears that still burn in my eyes. But here I am, a mother left alone in the sterile, humming silence of the ICU, where the machines beep and blink, but no one you love answers back. I was supposed to have time to hold her hand, time to whisper, "I'm sorry," time to say goodbye, but life doesn't wait, does it? She was my mother, complicated, stubborn, fierce. We had fights, long silences, wounds that hadn't healed. But she was still my mother, and when the call came, "She's in the ICU, it's serious." I ran, heart pounding, praying I wasn't too late. But I was. When I arrived, the nurses were kind, their eyes soft with the weight of stories like mine, but no one could give me what I wanted. One last moment. One last look. One last chance to tell her she mattered to me, even after everything. It's a pain I wouldn't wish on anyone. The ache of unfinished words, the regret of unsaid love, the hollow silence where goodbye should have been. And I know out there, someone else is living this right now. Maybe it's you. Maybe you're carrying that same weight on your chest, wondering if you could have done more, if you should have picked up the phone, if you should have forgiven. Please, if this story touches you, don't let another day go by without reaching out to the ones you love. Hold them a little closer. Say what's in your heart before it's too late. If my story resonates with you, I invite you to like this video, share your own experiences in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Together, maybe we can remind each other we're not alone in this heartbreak. The phone rang at 2:13 a.m., slicing through the heavy dark like a scalpel. You don't forget a sound like that. You can't. It burrows itself into your bones, rattling inside you long after the ringing stops. I stared at it glowing on my nightstand, heartbeat in my throat, pulse pounding in my ears. Something inside me, the small, mean voice I always ignored, whispered, "Don't answer. Let it go. Whatever waits on the other end will ruin you." But my fingers were already moving, trembling as they grabbed the phone. "Ms. Reynolds, I'm calling from St. Mark's ICU. Her voice was too calm, too polished. A voice that had said these words 100 times before, maybe 1,000, pressing the same jagged knife into the ribs of strangers again and again. I forced myself to listen, forced myself to hear. My mother was in the ICU, critical, serious. I remember those words because they burned into me like brands. I don't remember hanging up or grabbing my jeans or fumbling for my keys, but I know I did because 10 minutes later, I was on the highway, driving too fast through the black, rain-slicked streets. The windshield wipers slashed back and forth, the world smeared in streaks of gray and yellow. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles went bone white. I whispered silent prayers under my breath, but they came out fractured, panicked. "Please, not yet. Please give me time. Please don't let her die before I get there." It was stupid, of course. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks, hadn't visited in months. I'd made excuse after excuse, too busy, too stressed, too tired. But none of that mattered now. Now I was the desperate daughter racing to the hospital, trying to outrun the guilt that had lived in my gut for years. Every red light felt like a punishment, a cosmic slap on the wrist. Memories clawed up my throat. Our last fight, her voice sharp with disappointment, my words colder than I meant them to be, the final slam of the door. I told myself I was justified. She was suffocating, overbearing, impossible. But under all that anger was something softer, something fragile, the knowledge that even when we hated each other, we were still mother and daughter. I wondered if she'd asked for me, wondered if lying there among the tubes and beeping machines she'd whispered, "Where's my daughter?" Or if she'd given up hoping I'd come. The thought hit me so hard, I nearly pulled over. Pulling into the hospital parking lot, I sat for a moment, hands shaking on the steering wheel. My breath fogged up the windshield. I almost didn't get out. What if she didn't want to see me? What if the last thing she remembered was me turning away, shutting her out? What if it was already too late, and this whole frantic drive was nothing more than a cruel joke? I sat there, paralyzed, heart hammering, as the rain battered the roof of the car. The hospital loomed ahead, cold and unfeeling, its windows glowing dimly like 100 watching eyes. Somewhere inside, my mother was slipping away, and I didn't know if I was racing toward redemption or stepping into a grave I'd been digging with my own hands. "What do you think? If someone you love calls for you at the end, do you owe them your forgiveness, no matter what's happened between you? The ICU felt like a morgue pretending to be a hospital. Cold. Too cold. The air tasted of chemicals, sharp and acrid, like bleach had soaked into the walls, into the floors, into my skin. Every breath I took felt like swallowing knives. The nurses didn't need to ask who I was. Their eyes, soft and pitying, skimmed over me like they were fitting me into a familiar pattern. Another daughter, another too-late visitor, another sorry figure swept into the tide of grief that lapped at these walls night after night. They guided me through the hallway with practiced, quiet hands, murmuring instructions I barely heard, each step echoing with a hollow metallic thud that only I seemed to notice. And then I saw her. Through the thin glass window of the ICU room, my mother lay still, small, swallowed by white sheets and wires. She looked impossibly shrunken. A collapsed version of the woman I had fought with, laughed with, avoided, blamed. Tubes snaked out from under her gown like a grotesque spider's web, connecting her to machines that hissed and beeped in an indifferent rhythm. I felt like I was watching a puppet show. The body was there, but the strings were pulled by something far away, something I could never reach. My legs trembled as I stepped inside. For a brief, sharp moment, I was 12 years old again, small and trembling, hiding behind the couch after another screaming match, waiting for the storm of her anger to pass. But this was worse. There was no storm. There was no fire in her now, no fierce glare, no tight-lipped sigh. Just nothing. Her chest rose, barely, under the mechanical breath that wasn't hers. The machine did the work her body had abandoned, inflating her lungs with a soft whoosh, a sound too gentle for how loud it felt in my head. I moved closer, fingers reaching out instinctively, but stopped. I was afraid, not of touching her, but of breaking something delicate, shattering this thin, fragile barrier between life and death. Up close, her face was both painfully familiar and terrifyingly alien. The contours were right, the curve of her cheek, the slope of her nose, but everything else had slipped away. Her skin was pale, stretched too tightly over her bones, and her eyes, though closed, seemed sunken, as if they were already looking somewhere else. Somewhere I couldn't follow. I opened my mouth. Words surged up like floodwaters. I'm sorry. I should have come sooner. I love you. Please don't go. Please fight. But they clogged in my throat, thick and useless. Nothing came out, so I sat. I sat there as minutes dragged into an endless, suffocating stretch of time. I watched her chest rise and fall under the grip of a machine, watched her fingers lie still against the sheet, watched the numbers on the monitors flash and flicker like signals I didn't know how to read. And as I sat, I realized something cold and dark curling inside me. She was slipping further away, inch by inch, and I was just here, watching, silent, powerless. Tell me, have you ever sat with someone you love, knowing the words you need most are the ones you can't bring yourself to say? The last time we spoke, I hung up on her. I remember the sharp click, the tiny metallic echo in my ear, followed by silence. It should have felt satisfying, defiant, but even then, in the split second after, my stomach turned cold. That silence hadn't felt like victory. It had felt like stepping off a ledge. She had wanted to see me for dinner. Just a simple dinner. She'd called, her voice tight, trying too hard to sound casual. I thought maybe we could get dinner this week. And I, predictably, had said I was too busy. Always too busy. Work, deadlines, stress. That vague pressure of life I used as a shield, an excuse, a wall. But if I were honest with myself, truly honest, I wasn't too busy. I was too angry, too tired of the push and pull, of the old wounds we never stopped poking at. She'd called back after I hung up, left a voicemail. I never listened to it back then, out of sheer stubbornness, like ignoring it gave me the upper hand. But now, sitting in the hospital hallway with its 2 white lights and disinfectant sting in the air, I pulled out my phone and hit play. I just wanted to hear your voice. That was all she'd said. Simple, raw, a crack in her armor. I played it over and over, thumb trembling on the screen. Each time I heard it, the words burrowed deeper, gnawing at the core of me. Guilt isn't a sudden explosion. It's a slow, steady erosion, a whisper that worms through your ribs and wraps around your heart. You waited too long. You ran too late. Sitting there, surrounded by families murmuring, crying, praying. I let my mind slip backward. I remembered childhood nights when I cried alone in my room, and she never came. I remembered the drinking. Her glass of wine refilled again and again until her eyes turned glassy and her voice sharpened into knives. I remembered the slammed cabinets, the angry silences that stretched for days, and I remembered the hate. I clung to that hate for years, convinced it made me stronger, convinced it protected me. But now, sitting here, knees pulled up, shoulders trembling, I realized something I had never dared admit. Hate and love had always danced inside me, tangled, inseparable. One fed the other. Was I here to forgive her? Or, the darker, uglier question, was I here because I needed her to forgive me? The weight of that truth settled on my chest heavy as a stone. I buried my face in my hands and tried to breathe, tried to sort through the storm inside, the love, the resentment, the grief, the aching regret. I thought I knew who was to blame. I thought I'd been sure. But now in this hallway, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. Have you ever realized too late that the anger you carried was really just pain you didn't know how to face? That night, I folded myself into the corner of the ICU waiting room, a place designed for temporary agony, stiff chairs, fluorescent lights, vending machines humming with indifference. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling smaller than I had in years, and tried to close my eyes. But sleep wasn't kind. In the darkness behind my eyelids, she appeared. My mother. Not the frail woman hooked up to machines, but younger, sharp-cheeked, hair coiled in a perfect twist, the mother I remembered from when I was small. She leaned close, lips almost brushing my ear, and whispered, "Why didn't you come sooner?" I jerked awake with a strangled gasp, heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to claw out. The air felt too thin, the room too cold, every shadow stretching long and accusing. I reached for my phone out of habit. But there were no new messages, no missed calls, no magical reversal of time waiting on the screen, just the creeping ache of regret that settled heavier in my chest. A nurse passed by, her steps soft, eyes rimmed with the tiredness of someone who's seen too much grief compressed into white-walled rooms. She offered a small, practiced smile, the kind that said, "I see you, but I can't save you." I wanted to stop her. I wanted to ask, do people always arrive too late? Do they all sit in these stiff chairs, drowning under the weight of unfinished apologies and unsaid love? Do they all walk out of here heavier than they came in? But the words got stuck, lodged like a stone in my throat. Instead, I just nodded, a tight, helpless movement, and watched her disappear down the hall. The waiting room smelled faintly of stale coffee and disinfectant. I pressed my forehead to the cold window, staring out as the black sky slowly gave way to bruised purples and bleeding oranges. The sunrise was beautiful, sickeningly beautiful, and I hated it for daring to be. My mother was dying, and yet the world outside kept moving, cars rushing by, people stirring in their beds, the sun stretching its indifferent light across a city that didn't even know we were here. Time was slipping through my fingers, a cruel and constant drip, and I realized I still didn't know what I'd say if I got the chance to stand by her bed. What could I say that wouldn't sound hollow, desperate, too little, too late? I thought of all the words we had hurled at each other over the years, the endless battles, the slammed doors, the brittle silences. I thought of the times I'd wished she would just leave me alone, the times I swore I'd never be like her, the times I convinced myself I didn't care. But sitting there, watching the dawn creep in, I understood something bitter and undeniable. Maybe I never knew how to talk to her. Maybe I never really tried. And now, here I was, a grown woman curled up like a child in a hospital chair, whispering apologies into an empty room, hoping they could somehow find their way to a woman slipping further from reach. Have you ever wondered what you would say if you only had one last chance, and realized, too late, that you have no idea what those words would be? It was late afternoon when he finally showed up, my brother. Evan. Same dark eyes, same clenched jaw, same tired shadows under his skin. We hadn't spoken much in the last few years, just the occasional brittle holiday call or forced text on birthdays. But there he was, walking down the sterile hallway like a ghost, eyes darting over me like I was some stranger he hadn't expected to find here. "You weren't here," he said before anything else. No hello. No, how are you holding up? Just those 3 words. sharp as a slap. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. "You should have been here," he continued, voice tight like he was holding something back. Tears? Rage? I couldn't tell. I felt the heat rise in my chest, shame morphing into anger, anger twisting into something uglier. "And where the hell were you, I shot back. "You think staying in this town made you a saint?" We ended up by the vending machines, whispering sharp, poisonous words at each other, while the cheap coffee hissed and the candy bars clunked behind glass. Two grown adults, fighting like the wounded children we'd always been. He blamed me for disappearing after Dad left, for running off to college, to the city, to anything that wasn't her. He stayed behind, he reminded me, holding up the crumbling family house, driving her to doctor's appointments, enduring her sharp tongue, her loneliness, her bitterness. I blamed him for staying too close, for getting tangled in her guilt, for being the golden child who never said no, who let her lean too hard, too long, until she pulled him under too. But the truth was, neither of us knew how to love her, or each other. We were both just kids wearing adult skin, standing in a fluorescent-lit hallway, pretending we weren't falling apart. When we finally went back to her bedside, we stood on opposite sides, hands clutching the same cold bed rail, both reaching, silently, desperately, for the same fading light. She looked smaller now, sunken into the sheets, her skin waxy and yellow, tubes snaked from her nose and arms, machines beeped softly, a mechanical heartbeat echoing through the room. And then, suddenly, she stirred. Just a small sound, a soft groan, barely audible. My heart leapt into my throat, eyes wide, breath caught. I looked at Evan. He looked back, hope flashing, raw and electric. But the nurse shook her head, gently, almost sadly. "It's just a reflex," she whispered. "Not a sign. I'm sorry." It felt like something inside me shattered. I wanted to scream, to smash the machines, to grab her and shake her awake, demand she fight, demand she stay. But all I could do was stand there, squeezing her cold, limp hand, feeling nothing squeeze back. "Tell me, have you ever stood at someone's bedside, knowing you were losing them, and wondered if you'd earned the right to grieve?" Night had fallen again, thick as tar, smothering the hospital windows, sealing me inside that narrow room where time stretched and warped. The overhead lights buzzed softly, their glow casting sickly halos on the linoleum floor. I sat beside her bed, elbows on my knees, hands knotted so tightly they'd gone numb. I was unraveling. I spoke to her, though she didn't answer, couldn't answer. My voice cracked in the hollow air, threading old stories, pieces of our past, trying to stitch a connection from the fraying edges. I told her about the time I fell off my bike and she stayed up all night with me, rubbing my scraped knees with ointment and softly humming the song she used to sing when I was small. I reminded her how she once defended me at a school meeting, her voice sharp and protective even when I didn't deserve it. And then the apologies came. They poured out of me like water through a burst pipe, messy, desperate, unstoppable. I was sorry for the things I said, sorry for the way I pulled away, sorry for the cold silences, the accusations, the ugly pride that had kept us on opposite shores for so long. My throat ached, and still I kept whispering, hoping some part of her, deep under the skin, under the wires and monitors, could still hear. My brother had been here earlier, hovering by the door, pacing like a caged animal, but he couldn't bear it, the weight of this slow ending. He left with a muttered promise to return, though I knew he wouldn't. He'd always been good at leaving me to carry the unbearable parts. Alone, the silence began to press in, suffocating. The machines beeped in their cold, mechanical rhythm, counting out a life in numbers and lines. They didn't care who she was. They didn't care who I was. I stared at the shallow rise and fall of her chest, watching as though I could memorize the movement, brand it into memory, terrified for the moment it would stop. I thought about reaching for my phone, scrolling through the contacts, calling someone. A friend, maybe. An ex I hadn't spoken to in months. But the truth was sharp and bitter. There was no one left to call. One by one, they'd all drifted away. Or maybe I'd pushed them. It didn't matter now. The result was the same. Just me, here in this humming dark, waiting for the inevitable. The loneliness settled like lead across my shoulders, pressing me down, bending me toward the bed. I pressed my forehead to the edge of the mattress, eyes squeezed shut, breathing in the faint smell of her skin mixed with antiseptic and plastic. "Mom," I whispered, voice so thin it almost didn't exist. Please don't leave me alone." And for one suspended moment, I imagined she stirred, Imagined her fingers twitched, her lips parted. Imagined she could still come back to me. But the machines only kept beeping, steady, cruel, uncaring. Have you ever sat in a room like that, waiting, knowing the person you love is slipping further away with every breath, and realizing you are more alone than you've ever been? At 3:06 a.m., the nurse entered the room with a softness that should have meant hope but didn't. Her eyes were cast down, the weight of her unspoken words pressing into the air between us like a stone on my chest. "It's time, Shibsaik," she murmured, and for a split second, I wanted to shake her, to scream. Time for what? But I knew. I stood there, my body refusing to move, my breath caught high in my throat like a choke. My feet felt cemented to the ground as they moved around me, turning off the machines one by one, their beeps dropping away like stars snuffed out from the night sky. And then, silence. Not the soft, comforting kind. No, this was a silence that howled, a silence that punched through your skin, burrowed into your bones, and screamed without making a sound. I watched my mother's face, her skin paling, her mouth slightly open like she was about to tell me one last secret she never got to say. Her eyes were closed, but I imagined them flickering under the lids, still trying to hold on. And all at once it hit me, a tsunami of panic, of need, of raw realization. I needed her. I needed her. Not the perfect version. Not the soft mother I'd wished she was. I needed the real one, stubborn, sharp, complicated, the one I'd pushed away again and again. My knees gave out beneath me, just collapsed. Like my body knew something before my brain did, that this was the moment I would break and never be whole again. I crumpled to the cold floor, sobs tearing out of me, ugly and loud and gasping, the kind of crying you don't come back from clean. It was a sound I didn't know I could make, didn't know I would make, but there it was, primal, feral, shredded from the inside. The nurse crouched down beside me, resting a gentle hand on my shoulder. But no human touch could pierce the void that had opened up inside me. I was alone in a way I'd never been before. A daughter without a mother, a woman without a map, a child with no one left to rage against. As I sat there on the sterile hospital floor, chest heaving, snot running down my face, fingers digging into the tiles, I realized something dark and sharp. I hadn't just lost her. I'd lost me. The me I thought I was, the dutiful daughter, the one who would eventually make things right, the one who believed there'd always be another chance. She died too, right there in that room, right alongside the woman who made her. Who am I now that she's gone? Who do we become when the person we built our anger around, our love around, disappears into silence? I didn't know how many days had passed, 2, 3, maybe 4, since they handed me her belongings in a plastic bag. Time had become gelatinous, thick and suffocating, like moving underwater. My brother and I sat in the funeral home office, a quiet war zone of unsaid words, each of us pretending to care about floral arrangements, hymn selections, coffin finishes. We spoke in brittle, practical tones, as if detachment would save us from shattering completely. What haunted me most wasn't the casket or the music or the damn slideshow they offered to put together. It was the gnawing suspicion that we were planning a performance she never would have wanted. Did she care about lilies? About Amazing Grace? About the dress we'd picked for her? A soft blue one I hadn't even seen her wear in years? I pictured her watching us from some cruel vantage point, laughing at the irony. Late one night, when I couldn't sleep and the house smelled too much like her perfume, I opened her nightstand drawer, the same drawer I'd been too afraid to touch when she was alive, as if her secrets would jump out and bite me. Under old receipts and yellowed birthday cards, I found it. A letter, folded once, my name scrawled on the front. My throat closed up before I even opened it. Inside, her handwriting, shaky, slanted, familiar in a way that gutted me, spilled across the page. She apologized. She said she'd been hard on me. She said she loved me, that despite everything, she was proud. I read it once, twice, a third time, the words blurring into saltwater smudges. I broke right there on the floor of her bedroom, gasping for air as if grief had hands, and was pressing down on my chest. She'd been trying, in her only stubborn, imperfect way, to reach me, and I'd been too wrapped up in old resentments to see it. The day of the funeral came too fast, and not fast enough. Strangers filled the small chapel, faces I didn't know, names I didn't recognize, people from her church group, her book club, neighbors who'd probably nodded politely but never really known her. My brother and I stood at the front, side by side, two statues carved from the same raw grief. When it was my turn to speak, I rose, legs trembling, mouth dry. The words I'd rehearsed dissolved the moment I faced the crowd. I saw her face, her fierce, beautiful, maddening face, and all I could do was cry. For once, I let myself. I let the weight of everything we'd left unsaid pour out, raw and ugly and real. Afterward, when the chapel emptied and the world felt hushed and hollow, my brother took my hand. No speeches, no apologies. Just two siblings sitting side by side, holding on to each other because it was the only thing left that made sense. Tell me, have you ever found forgiveness where you least expected it? Maybe even after it was too late? The house smelled like her. That was the first thing that hit me when I opened the door, a mix of lavender lotion, old paper, and something faintly floral, something hers. My legs felt shaky as I stepped inside, the air still, thick, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I walked slowly through the rooms, brushing my fingers over the backs of chairs, over the edge of the kitchen counter where she used to rest her coffee cup. Every step echoed. Every room, every corner buzzed with ghosts I couldn't see but could feel. In the living room, I stood in front of the bookshelf she'd been so proud of, crammed with mystery novels, gardening guides, old family photo albums. My hand hovered over the spines, trembling. I pulled one out, one of the photo albums, and opened it. Her handwriting on the inside cover, delicate and looping. Our family, 1989 to 2005. My throat closed up. I flipped through page after page, my childhood staring back at me, my birthday parties, my high school graduation, her arm around me, proud, beaming, in picture after picture, photos I had never even known existed, tucked away in this book, in this house that was now just mine. I found birthday cards I never opened, still in their envelopes, hidden in drawers, gifts I never thanked her for, still wrapped, tucked in the closet. Things she'd saved for me, maybe waiting for the day we'd finally sit down, face to face, and talk through the mess we'd made of each other. But that day never came. I sat down on her bed, the floral comforter smooth and perfectly in place, and pressed my face into my hands. The finality of it all crashed over me like a wave. There would be no more late-night phone calls, no more surprise visits, no more arguments, no more apologies, no more anything. Just this house, these things, these echoes, and more than anything, I wished for something simple, not a grand confession or dramatic reconciliation, not some movie-ending moment of redemption. I just wanted one more day, one more ordinary, stupid, perfect day, sitting in the kitchen, drinking coffee, listening to her chatter about the neighbors or the garden. I wanted the boring things, the small things, the things I never knew I'd miss until they were gone. I wondered, in those last moments lying alone in the ICU, did she know I loved her? Did she believe it, even after all the fights, the silences, the sharp words I could never take back? And worse, would I ever forgive myself for not showing it enough, for not saying it enough? The ache in my chest felt like something that might never leave, a hollow space carved out and left raw. I walked through her house, feeling the walls press in, knowing this grief wasn't something you fix, it's something you carry. And I couldn't help but wonder, how many of you out there know this feeling, this sharp, empty regret, this ghost ache you can't shake? Have you ever stood in the middle of someone's absence and realized you never ever said enough? Grief is a strange companion. It doesn't leave, not really. It just changes shape, slipping into your bones, your breath, your skin. A shadow stitched so tightly to you that after a while you stop noticing it's there. I thought grief would be a season, something I could pass through if I just kept moving, but I was wrong. Grief doesn't pass. It settles. Some mornings, I wake up and feel her in the room. My mother. It's in the sharpness of the morning light, the scent of the rain-soaked earth outside, the faint creak of the house. She's not really there. Of course, she's not. But I hear her voice in my head, the way she used to call my name, that slight edge of impatience she always carried. Sometimes I answer back, out loud. I catch myself doing it and feel a pang of shame, like I've been caught in some childish act. But the truth is, those conversations are what keep me standing. I visit her grave more often than I thought I would. Not because I believe she hears me. I'm not sure I believe in much of anything anymore, but because I need to stand there, to talk, to leave flowers. I tell her things I never said when she was alive, that I was scared of her sometimes, that I loved her even when I pulled away, that I wish I'd been braver, softer, kinder. I tell her about my brother, how we're closer now, two battered souls trying to make sense of a mother-shaped hole in our lives. We laugh together sometimes over old memories, sharp-edged but softened by time. We argue less, we hold on tighter. Forgiveness is the hardest lesson. Forgiving her for the wounds she left. Forgiving myself for the wounds I caused. Forgiving the past for all the ways it marked me. Some days I feel like I'm making progress, like the weight is just a little lighter. Other days it's as heavy as ever, a stone lodged in my chest. I still wake up some nights with the ghost of panic in my throat, hand reaching for the phone, heart racing. And then I remember. She's gone. There's no call to make, no words left to say. Just the echo of unfinished conversations, the ache of things left undone. But here's the thing. I'm still here. I'm surviving, I'm learning, slowly, painfully, to live with the ghosts. They're part of me now, woven into the fabric of who I am. And maybe that's okay. Maybe healing isn't about erasing the past, but about carrying it with grace. If you're reading this, if you're carrying your own grief, your own jagged little shards of regret and sorrow, I want you to know you're not alone. We're all walking this road together, stumbling, scarred, but moving forward. If my story touched you, please like this video, share your own journey in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. Let's create a space where none of us have to face our heartbreak alone.